Wominjika, or welcome to today's panel discussion on how engineering at RMIT is industry connected. My name is Adrian Arafici and I'm a professor here at RMIT in aerospace engineering in the STEM college, otherwise known as Science, Technology, Engineering and Math. Before we kick off today's discussion, I'd like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT University respectfully acknowledges the ancestors and elders, past, present and emerging. And while we conduct our work remotely, I want to pay my respect to the wider unceded lands of this nation. So in this session, we're going to explore how you can connect with industry during your engineering studies at RMIT. We'll talk through why this is so important to engineering studies and what are the different opportunities that are available at RMIT. We have a wonderful panel today, which includes academics, we've got 2 recent graduates, and we've got an industry representative. So we're really going to get quite a full picture of this issue from all points of view. So we'll do a quick introduction to our panel. We're definitely going to hear in depth their story and their insights one by one, but we'll do a quick whip around of the panel as we have it today. We've got Professor Margaret Jollins, who's the Dean of Learning and Teaching in the Engineering and Technology Cluster. Hello, Margaret. We've got 2 alumni. We've got Eve Smolinska, who is a graduate engineer working for McConnell Dowell Constructors. She graduated with a civil engineering degree in 2020. Hello, Eve. We've got Molly Coleman, who is a business development manager for the Buller Group and completed a double degree in chemical engineering and food technology and nutrition in 2019. So hello, Molly. And finally, we are very lucky to have an industry representative, Warren Hughes, who is a Senior Director in Software Engineering at Salem Build. G'day, Warren. So a quick bit of housekeeping just before we start. I'd like to remind our viewers that we'll have 15 minutes at the end of our panel discussion to go over any questions from the audience. So you can submit questions in the Q&A tool on the right-hand side at any time, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible in that final 15 minutes. Okay, great. Well, let's dive right into it. Welcome again, everybody. Again, we're going to talk all about getting connected with industry. I want to start with you, Margaret. So let's kick off proceedings. Now, you are the Dean of Learning and Teaching, so you've got really great overview overall of our learning and teaching in engineering. And being connected to industry is so important to that, and obviously RMIT has a really strong reputation for industry partnerships. So let's just dive in and talk a little bit across the issue so we can understand the background. And maybe I'll start with probably the easiest question. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself, what you do and sort of how you got here?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. It's great to be here, and I'm really happy to talk on these topics. And so my role is as Dean of Learning and Teaching is to think about the quality of the teaching and learning that's happening in the schools of engineering and computer technology. So I do a lot of work with staff. I'm also thinking about student experience and so on. So I'm quite interested in quite a few areas. One of my background, I worked in industry for 5 years. So as a research engineer, my background is in materials engineering. So I really enjoyed that. And then when I wanted to have a bit of a career change and looked and thought that I really enjoy working at a university, and I really have. I was just saying I've worked at RMIT for 25 years, so that's a very significant career to be at one place. But I really love teaching and I love working with students and staff, and very interested in areas, including one of my research interests is in employment outcomes for students, and how can we work with students. How can we design our curriculum? How can we create opportunities while they're at university that help them be more successful in their careers once they graduate and go and get their first position or later positions?
Yeah, okay, that's wonderful. So maybe to start with a bit of an overview, when we're talking about being exposed to professional practice of engineering and industry in general, why is it so important that studying engineering is integrated with industry?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So one of the first reasons is because in engineering we really have to. It's an accreditation requirement from Engineers Australia and other accrediting bodies that our programs are accredited with, that our graduates are knowledgeable and they can transfer their knowledge to real problems. And that on the way they develop a really wide range of soft skills or transferable skills. So we really have to do this. But of course, we really want to do this as well because employers are always identify that these are the kind of things that they value in graduates. And so being able to work with our students and help them with their careers is something that is very close to what we're trying to do. And so to do that a little bit more in detail, how do we integrate the engineering studies? Well, what we aim to do is to show how each course relates, the content of that course and why they're studying it relates to their future success. And so that's always linked and interwoven. And the final reason is that so if students are exposed to different aspects of industry, because every industry has, there's always lots of choices. Students graduate and they need to choose which direction they want to go in. Within fields like civil engineering, there's still lots of choice. Within chemical engineering, lots of different directions, and we'll hear more about that from Eve and Molly in a minute, I think. So to put industry integration into our courses helps students work out, oh, that sounds really interesting. Or conversely, okay, that doesn't sound so interesting. So it really helps students work out what they're interested in.
Yeah, and can you maybe give some examples of RMIT's industry partnerships that we have?
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think we have industry partnerships with hundreds of companies. So very prominent are the big companies who, for example, Vic Rail has taken 10 to 15 interns per year for several years. So they've been very prominent in interns. There's a lot of small companies, small to medium-sized companies who take maybe 1 or 2 interns per year. There's international companies. So we have internships for engineering undergraduates with multinational companies that might take place in UK, USA or Germany, or also in countries in Asia. And those companies would be Airbus, Bosch, Rolls-Royce, really big names. And we also have, not quite industry, but we have research projects with other universities. And so students often like to go and work in a university doing a research project over the summer or something like that. So, yeah, there's a real lot of industry partnerships.
Yeah, and I can hear you talking a lot about sort of placements, and I think that's kind of definitely one aspect of industry exposure. But maybe could you talk through a few of the different ways that students can get exposed to industry during their studies?
Yeah, so certainly very traditionally, and it's important for engineering students especially to do an internship. So that's certainly one way, and I think people are pretty familiar with that, where you might work for 10 weeks over the summer for a company, one of the companies I've just mentioned, and sometimes students work for up to a year. So so those are internships where you go and work in industry and relate that and do maybe do 1 or 2 courses while you're there that cover that internship, which have assessments and so on. But much closer to home, we have in our courses, in every course in RMIT, and so for the viewers, at RMIT, an engineering degree is called a program, and it's made up of courses. About 36 courses go into a 4-year degree. So when I say that's what I mean by course, it might be also subject. So we have, in every course, we would have real-world examples of applications, and if there's a project, then it will be related to something that is in industry, and those examples and projects are really important for helping students to relate their theoretical knowledge to applications in the field. And because it's real world examples, that definitely adds a lot of interest for students. So it's also very motivating, as well as really important to understand deeply. And many courses incorporate guest speakers from industry. It's fantastic for students to hear first-hand accounts. It's very powerful and inspiring. So we bring industry lecturers into courses. And a third place I mentioned projects. So industry, our university works very closely with industry and brings projects that industry would like for real projects that they're looking for solutions, creative solutions, and our students work on those as part of especially our Capstone courses that every engineering student does. So there's lots of examples there of how students will be at RMIT are connected with industry work and industry thinking and industry examples.
Yeah, that's wonderful, actually. Yeah, probably more than what people would expect when they talk about just thinking in terms of placements. Just some follow-ups on what you mentioned. When you talk about students going off and doing a placement, is that something that they can get credit for?
Yeah, it certainly is. So there are a variety of courses where students can get credit for their internships. And so there's courses specially set up for internships and of different lengths. So there's a course that for a 10 to 12 week internship, there's other courses for 6-month internships and other ones for a year. So it's because it's such a rich learning experience, and we really want to encourage students to take the time to go and do an internship. So it's really good to try and also to reflect on their learning while they're at the internship in these internship courses.
Okay, final question, just as a follow-up, and we're definitely going to hear more from our graduates. But what kind of support do RMIT provide to students to sort of get these sort of placements? Is it all just student initiative, or is there support that the engineering school provides?
Well, there's certainly a lot of room for initiative, and I think we'll hear from Eve and Molly about that. And certainly we encourage that, because the actually looking for an internship is a really good practice run for looking for that final graduate job. So there's also, but of course, our willing engagement team are very active, talking to industry, bringing opportunities, advertise those, but still those will be competitive and students have to apply for those. And RMIT Careers is also very busy providing students with opportunities to how to improve their CV, how to work on their interview skills, how to work on their networking skills. So we're really trying to scaffold students to develop all those key skills for having a successful career. So there's a wide range of support that's offered. The placements aren't provided direct to students. Students are going to have to do the work, but we think that work of finding a placement is really important part of getting the skills together to go out in the workforce.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Couldn't agree more. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure we'll return back to you as we pick up on some questions and some points from the rest of our panelists. Okay, what I'd like to do now is move to our graduates, Eve and Molly. I'd really like to try and open up a bit of a discussion on some of those areas and really hear your experience, your first-hand experience of going through, hopefully still fresh, you haven't forgotten all about your studies since graduating. So let's start with talking about placements, I guess. That's probably the easiest way to start. And I want to start with you, Eve. Now, by the time you completed your studies, you'd actually finished 4 internships, which is amazing. Can you just, talk us through your experiences and share your stories with some of those internships?
Yeah, 100%. So one of the first internships I've gotten was in civil construction, and that was actually in my second year, so quite early on in my university journey. And that was actually just me handing a CV in to a person at a careers fair. It was that simple. But after a while, as the civil engineering degree is very design focused, I thought, maybe construction isn't actually for me. Maybe I should try design before I commit to this one pathway. So I've started as an undergraduate structural engineer, working throughout holidays, but then also part-time throughout my studies. So it was like a good combination of putting what we learn at university into practice. And after a while as well, I've decided to try civil engineering. So this time around, it wasn't structural design, for example, for buildings. It was more stormwater design for stormwater pipes. And lastly, I actually, after talking to my mentors, talking to people within the industry, within lectures, and comparing those experiences, I've decided to go back into construction. And I've started my 4th internship, which actually turned into a graduate program. And with my current company, McConnell Dowell, and that focuses on infrastructure. So a lot of projects, for example, like the level crossing removals in Melbourne.
Yeah, okay, that's a lot of different insights. So yeah, I think we're going to come back. I'll try and pull apart some of those sort of key points, but I want to bring Molly into the conversation as well. Now, Molly, it's not a competition, but you did 6 placements, which I think must be some sort of record or something, because certainly, I don't know more than that. But yeah, why did you have it as such a focus for you and such a priority to chase those internships?
Yeah, I guess for me, the key reason is because I joined RMIT on the basis of them having that reputation for a practical base, a really good practical grounding. And I saw internships as being a great way to complement that. I definitely saw a lot of interaction in between what I learned at school and what I was doing on the job. But it also comes back to passion. I'm super passionate about food, ag, and sustainability. And so my internships across water, waste, and food really honed that in for me, and I guess confirmed what I had a bit of an inkling of, that I was really keen on food, and it's where I wanted my career to be.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, so what I think, just picking up on what you said, I want to really pull out just a few of those sort of main aspects of doing an internship and a placement. So maybe first to Eve, when you think about reflecting on sort of going through that experience of having a placement and coming back and going again, what do you felt like you gained in terms of, how did you grow, or things that you gained from those placements?
I think for me, the biggest thing was just being able to actually see the value of what it is that you study at university, and see that everything you've learned you're actually applying now. Might be in a little bit of a different context, and it was definitely difficult, I suppose, at first. But yeah, additionally to that technical knowledge, which actually does feed into the university and makes you appreciate the course, but to also understand the lecture notes in more depth. Mm-hmm. Additionally, I'd say it's also those little things of understanding how businesses operate, how people communicate, how people actually work in a team, and even be able to bring that back to your teamwork at university.
Yeah, and what about you, Molly? How did you feel like you gained or benefit from doing those so many placements? Was it similar to what Eve?
Yeah, I think it was just a lot of clarity around what I wanted to do in my career. I really think that the placements showcase what RMIT gave me, and it wasn't just skill. It wasn't just academic knowledge. It wasn't just theory. It was the network that RMIT presented me with, the opportunities to develop my soft skills. I think it all came together for one university experience. Yeah, so I don't really separate placements from club from my coursework. For me, it's the whole RMIT package, I guess. Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about that, Molly. Well, I've got you. In terms of, can you reflect on how did doing a placement change you as a student, or how did you, what changed for you during your studies as a result of sort of doing those placements?
Yeah, I guess a big one was my grades. So pure academia never really suited me, and just doing exams or that sort of stuff, in high school, I didn't perform very well. My marks in science and maths, although I loved the subjects, just weren't very good. And unfortunately, that did get me down a little bit from a confidence perspective. I thought maybe that meant that I wasn't going to be a good engineer, or it wasn't the career for me. But being, I guess, at RMIT and doing the placements, it sort of gave me the confidence, okay, I can do this in practice. I can deliver these projects in a workplace environment. And at the end of the day, I think that's a much more secure test on how you are as an engineer versus on a test or exam. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And Eve, to you, did doing a placement change you as a student, or how did it sort of, did it change your perspective or your approach to it?
I think it mostly made me realize how little we all actually know, and how much knowledge there is to gain. And, that applies to us, but it applies to people with 40 years experience in the industry. They're still learning every day. And so it definitely, I suppose, changed my mindset onto that positive one, that whoever you talk to and wherever you go, you will certainly learn something worthwhile and apply it later on.
And just with you still, Eve, was there something that you found really challenging, or what do you feel like was the most sort of challenging aspect in any of your placements?
I'd say it was mostly just a new environment, and that was probably the biggest shock at the very beginning. Especially having those couple of internships and changing. Every business operates differently, and it's a completely different environment. It's different being in a design office versus being on site. particularly as well being a female in a male-dominated industry. So it's a little bit of a shock, but with time, everybody's always friendly, and they're definitely trying to put I suppose give that extra time for interns, so they actually understand the industry, and there's always time to answer all those multiple questions that interns have.
Yeah, just needing to adapt, I guess. What about you, Molly? Was that something similar, or what was your biggest challenge sort of adapting to, or just in general from internships?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that adapting your communication style, because at uni, the people you're talking to, lecturers, peers, people in clubs, that only gives you one section of a community and one section of people you would be dealing with day to day. But I had the same experience as Eve, going on site and dealing with all sorts of education levels, from, finishing school at 15 all the way through to full trades, all the way through to PhDs and experts in their field. You have to be able to speak to all of those people and all of that range, and be able to transfer your ideas and what you want to get across as well to every single person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean dumbing things down or wishing things up. That means just making your idea accessible. And in a funny way, it actually makes you understand your own ideas better. Because if you can't, express your ideas in a really accessible way, then you might have to think about whether it's well-formed or not. That's been my experience anyway. Quite humbling, I think.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget the importance of communication. It's as an essential tool for an engineer to sort of just to do their job. So yeah, I think that's great experience. Okay, just final question. Let's say on internships. Sticking with you, Molly. Did you feel like it informed your career planning? When you sort of saw yourself and where you saw yourself going post studies, did your internships inform that sort of career planning, the career path?
Yeah, I kind of feel like through my internships, I was able to try before I buy, if that makes sense. So I tried a research pathway, I tried a pure design engineer pathway, operations, and really came to know myself and what I enjoyed, what came naturally to me, what was a bit more challenging. And what I realized is I kind of liked all of it, which is obviously I found very difficult in career planning, because I thought, how can I do all of these jobs at once? Spoiler, I'm currently in a job that does all of them at once. So we got there. But the truth is that I don't think career planning ever ends, and it's something that's ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Eve? I know you said you ended up in working for the company that you did the placement, but across those four, was it helpful in terms of your career planning and your sort of pathway to industry?
Yeah, 100%. So I've originally actually chose the civil engineering degree at RMIT thinking that I would want to do structural design. So, you sort of focused and you come in with this one mindset, but it actually, all of a sudden, you open that door, similarly to what Margaret said, to civil engineering, and all of a sudden there's actually 12 plus doors behind it of choosing what option you actually want to follow from then. And yeah, in the end now, I'm actually glad I did all these internships, because I will never be looking back that I might have missed out on doing structural engineering for the rest of my life, versus I just know that what I've done at McConnell Dowell, just construction, I've just enjoyed and I will enjoy in the future. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, I'd like to move on from, let's say, specifically talking about internships, and just talk about more broadly other ways that we can connect with industry during study. Now, Molly, one way that I think it's important for students to do is to sort of connect on a range of fronts, to learn about the industry and to network with people from industry. Can you maybe talk through, in order to get 6 placements, you must have a range of strategies that you put in place to sort of either learn about things, what's coming up, or to connect and network. Yeah, can you maybe just talk through some of the things that you've done to connect with industry as a student?
Yeah, sure. So what Eve was mentioning before about opening doors, that's such a big one. I think when you're in a university community, lots of doors are there, and it's up to you to really go and open those and chase those down. I think for me, it's pretty lame, but I use the analogy of a garden. So the more places you plant the seeds, the more seeds you plant, the bigger your network can grow. And in a in an environment where 83% on average of the jobs are hidden, it's a hidden job market in our field of engineering, it's quite essential that your network is strong, because that is such a great thing about our profession is our network is so strong that we are able to hire within that field. But developing access to that takes a bit of time, and it takes some investment of time. And ways you can do that is through clubs, through committees, even through your local community, through accessing industry nights, engaging with placements like on LinkedIn or elsewhere. I had plenty of avenues that didn't work out, and just like my houseplants at home, some of them not so great, but we've recovered, and I think quite a few of those, Adrian, sort of fruited and really multiplied, which is really great. I think out of my placements, 4 of them were through referrals. So you can see, I guess, the power of network. Once you invest in that, it really returns dividends. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably something you can do from day one, even before day one. Yeah. And Eve, what about you? I heard Molly talk a little bit about student societies and student clubs. I know you were kind of heavily involved in student-run clubs. Do you want to share a little bit your experience there and how that sort of helped you connect with industry and what you sort of gained from the student clubs?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the Civil Engineering Student Association, which is a civil club at RMIT, and also the Females in RMIT Engineering, which is aimed at engaging and connecting women across all the engineering disciplines. So similarly, I suppose in particular that last one was actually one of the strongest links, as it connected you with everyone across those different disciplines, and enabled that career switching as well. But yeah, naturally, both of these clubs were absolutely fantastic in growing those networks, as at the end of the day, your peers are your future network as well. We shouldn't be thinking just as those employers that we talk to as students. It's actually just the people sitting in that classroom next to you. And yeah, similarly, there were a lot of student-run events. So both those clubs organize either social events or professional events. So those social ones focus on connecting students with students. So we'd, for example, go do a trivia night together, or I suppose any of those like open day events to connect students, or it will be an industry event. So either an office tour to actually go listen from industry professionals about their work and see where they work and how they work. Go to a site visit to actually go to a construction site. We'd have career networking nights or industry nights where you can actually get connected with 30 plus companies and talk to the people who hire students. So yeah, those are just a couple of examples. And yeah, definitely industry connection right there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of seeds, a lot of places to plant the seeds, as Molly would say. All right, so let's just look at one dimension, which I think I heard one of you say, which is around having a mentor, and having an industry mentor is another way that you can get kind of an insight on the industry. Maybe Molly, first to you. How important do you think it is to have a mentor or multiple mentors during your studies?
Yeah, I think it's probably something important to say. It's about your support structure. So you can have your family and your friends, and the lecturers will definitely be there for you. But mentorship's a really great way of developing a support structure who kind of backs you in, and it's almost like your coaching team to help you get and land those jobs, right? And what Eve mentioned before around clubs is like speed mentoring, because you've got access to all these people at multiple levels of their uni journeys and even career journeys that can really share their stories, where they're at, and you can learn from that, which is amazing. But I'm a big fan of mentoring goes both ways. So my first mentor at uni, I was lucky enough that he instilled in me, I guess, the importance of giving back and passing that good energy on. So doesn't matter how inexperienced you are, I believe you can always offer something to someone, and they don't have to be less experienced than you. They can be more senior than you. Something my workplace is doing at the moment is two-way mentoring, where digital natives and digital explorers are mentoring each other. So I think that just goes to show that mentoring is really just about support and helping people achieve their goals. And yeah, just building up your coaching network or your team. Yeah.
And what about you, Eve? Is mentorship something that you saw as important during your studies, or that you can reflect on now as important to take on for engineering students?
Yeah, certainly. And either, similar to what Molly said, either official ways or unofficial through talking to your peers. What I actually liked about RMIT is that finding your first mentor is actually quite easy, as there's an internal mentoring website. So you can just apply as a mentee, say who you're looking for, and you'll be matched with someone from the industry. So it's as easy as that when you're at those first steps of your career and you sort of don't know how to get a mentor. So they can also help you with your questions, but also connect you to that broader industry. And yeah, that's definitely something I've been doing throughout my university journey, and I'm still doing. So even throughout my graduate program at McConnell Dow, we actually have an assigned mentor to us. And similar to what Molly said here, it works both ways. It's also him asking my opinion as us as young engineers, we're bringing that different, fresh perspective to the business.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, let's just changing gears to two more aspects before we wrap up. Eve, staying with you, another really obvious way that students can get exposed to industry is in the classroom. So yeah, can you maybe just talk a little bit about, what kind of perspective that you heard, or what was your experience around hearing from industry in the classroom in the lectures?
Yeah, so similar to what Margaret mentioned before, we have industry professionals come into lectures. And particularly in the civil degree, I reckon we had one industry professional at least per course. So it meant that, at least every semester you would have 4+ people come in and speak to the students. And sometimes some of the courses would even have an industry professional every single lecture. And they can actually brief you on what's happening in the industry, what they do as engineers. And in regard to myself, I've actually participated in one of those lectures myself. So last semester for the infrastructure management course, I've actually come in from my company with another representative, a senior project engineer, and we've both spoken of how quality management is actually done on site and how, what students are learning about. So in that infrastructure management course, it was very focused on deteriorating infrastructure, how we on site, when we construct, for example, a bridge, we actually ensure that quality stays and the bridge can live up to its design life. So it was a cool experience to actually be able to be on the other side for once as well.
Yeah, I guess, seeing it from both sides is pretty important. Okay, my final question in this sort of section is back to Molly. One of the things we heard Margaret talk about is a capstone project, and how when you get to the end of your engineering studies, you get the opportunity to do a final year project or a capstone project. And that's actually a really great opportunity to engage with industry and take an industry problem. Do you want to talk us through your capstone project?
Yeah, sure. So in my course, it's different a little bit for every course, but in my course, we had the opportunity to choose from real life industry projects that were already out there. But I actually took a bit of a different approach. I put forward a project that was a real problem at the company I was working for at the time as an intern, which was antibiotic use in animal feed. So really my project, I worked on it for about a year over the capstone period and addressed feed formulations to mitigate antibiotic use in chickens and in pigs. So it was quite something I grew to be very passionate and still am today in my role at Beulah. I guess trying to reduce antibiotic resistance. I think a key part of Capstone, yes, it proves that you are work ready and it proves that all this training has led you to this point. But additionally, it helped me land my dream job, which was to commission a full manufacturing plant. So for me, it was far more than just another project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, it was quite central to me and I've done okay at school, but I didn't really win any academic awards. And I won the award for my year for that project. So it was a very proud moment for me. I mean, 12 years of schooling and I finally won something. So it was really exciting. But I think that just goes to show, Adrian, that, if you're really engaged in something and you really enjoy what you're doing, then it'll come back.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, well, thank you both so much for that section. I think we've heard a lot about, what it's like from the student perspective. So that's great. I'm sure we'll have more questions from the audience as we go through. So don't go anywhere. Our final panelist that we're very lucky to have a chance to talk to is our industry representative. So Warren, turning to you now. As I said, we've heard the student perspective, we've heard the academic perspective, and it's great if you can give us that. What does industry get from engaging with students during their studies? Now, in your case, you're a senior director at Slalom Build. So maybe just to start, could you tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I work at Slalom Build, a company that helps to unlock the power of teams and technology by combining design, product engineering, analytics, and automation to custom build the software, data, and cloud platforms of tomorrow. My current role, I provide delivery oversight across a broad portfolio of projects and clients involved with kind of business development activities focused on the health of the business and recruiting, and guide some of our inclusion, diversity, and equity initiatives. And occasionally, I still get to write some code. Like many here, I was drawn to technology and engineering at an early age. My first job was to address the infamous Y2K bug over 20 years ago. While my role and responsibilities have changed over the years, my passion and excitement for building software, solving problems, working with the latest tech, and delivering products to customers has only increased.
Yeah, and I understand just on the personal side that you moved here to Melbourne only recently, and snuck in. Can you maybe tell us about your experience moving to Australia and how you've coped in these times?
Yeah. So I was actually supposed to move earlier in 2020, but the world changed, so it changed my plans. But I still wanted to move here because of the opportunity to build out our engineering capability. So after a year of working with the team remotely to do interviews and grow the team and collaborate across numerous time zones, I was able to move in January with my family. So I finally boarded a plane, a mostly empty plane in January. There's a wide range of emotions as there were only a few people traveling at the time, but I knew what it was going to be the kind of the next phase and an opportunity to build something special here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the topic of the day, which is around engineering students and getting industry experience, and let's say in particular placements. So now, you've actually supervised engineering interns on placements. So what are the qualities that you look for in an intern?
Yeah, fortunately for us, we have a diverse set of capabilities to deliver software. It's not just all software engineering. We have data engineering, quality engineering, as well as solution ownership and experience design, because it takes a lot of skills to build the products that we like. So across all those capabilities, we look at similar qualities from delivery, leadership, collaboration, along with obviously the technical skills and knowledge. We understand that folks coming in at this early age have little to no industry experience, but there are life experiences along with their education that demonstrate problem solving, communication, team mentality, self-awareness, a desire and a passion for learning and growing. For me, I also look for their ability to apply learned concepts to real world situations, right? Not necessarily from experience, but just taking their learned their education and applying it outside of just the books, right? Our goal is to identify unique individuals to work within a team, right? Looking to gain experience through project work and just ultimately continue to grow. So
and I mean, you mentioned about having limited industry experience. What are the types of things that engineering students do on placements?
Yeah, no, it's great. They work on actual real world products, right? So initially we start on internal projects just to gain an understanding of the technology, the language, the tools, and then our interns have also built some of our kind of internal products that we use every day from our candidate experience portal. So if down the road they're applying as an engineer, our interns have actually built that portal. Then they'll end up working on cross-disciplinary teams of solution owners, software engineers, automation engineers, designers, automated testers while being fully supported by architects and engineers, right? To give them the oversight. They'll gain a breadth of experience in a variety of fields, disciplines, and some depth, because the projects can be 4 to 6 months. So it's not just a quick view of the technology, but get a deep understanding. And it ranges from building web apps, mobile apps, API-driven platforms, get to work with data, build intelligent products to learn, connect, and ultimately delight customers.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, you talk about throwing students in the deep end, which sounds amazing, but a little bit scary, I imagine, for a lot of students. Is there a lot of support that you provide to sort of guide them through that as well?
Absolutely, and that's and as I mentioned before, this is a team sport, the way we play it, right? So there's one person doesn't go out, and even with years of experience. So we go out with the team and put a team together with a variety of skills and years and experience, and so that we can coach it and guide people through the challenges, let them make mistakes in a safe environment, and get the coaching that's needed.
And I mean, it sounds like students are definitely benefiting a whole heap in terms of this. But is there value to industry? What does industry get from taking students on?
Oh, absolutely. They often remind people of why they started and are still interested in this field. Right? They ask the questions that some are afraid to ask as they are new, and they're expected to ask. And it also forces people to take a step back and to explain and actually validate that they have a clear understanding of concepts and why we're making the decisions. Right? They also provide an opportunity for people to develop their mentoring, coaching, communication, and collaboration skills. Right, so it goes both ways, and just it improves the overall work environment with enthusiasm, energy, motivation. And they quickly become an integral part of our team.
So it's seen as something valuable and something to incorporate, as opposed to something that's going to take resources and take time.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's good to hear for our prospective students. And what about in terms of diversity? I guess is a challenge in engineering, or is certainly in some areas of engineering. How important do you think diversity is to a team? Is that something that you look for, or that you expect students to be able to navigate?
Yeah, I mean it's very important, right? Every individual brings something unique to a team, right? There's the visible diversity from gender, race, ethnicity, physical challenge, and age, but there's some other things that we also look at, from gender identity, neurodiversity, religion, life experiences where people grow up. It all matters to the people that we work with, including our clients and partners, right? Diverse teams, inclusive leaders, and a global mindset create an environment where we can be more innovative, make smarter decisions, and deliver better outcomes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, final question is around just what happens next for interns. What's the next step for them, or what do you see as or how have you seen that the placement is part of the journey of the student from studies into industry? So what happens next after students have done a placement? Where do they go, and where do you see that?
Yeah, for us, it's been a variety of choices, not one size fits all. Right, some need to go back to school and want to focus on school for the year. Some are trying to balance continuing to work in industry while finishing up studies, and some are ready to come full time. Right, so they're different choices. There's definitely not a one size fits all model.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is excellent. I really appreciate hearing that important industry perspective, and I think, certainly our prospective students, to hear that they're actually valuable and can add value to industry is certainly something that is important, and that you can actually have a role to play, in industry, I think is super important. All right, well, we've actually come into the final 15 minutes, and so this is our opportunity to take questions from the audience. I'm just having a quick look at the questions. Okay, that's good. We got a lot of questions. It's great to see so much interest. Okay, so yeah, plenty of questions. Yeah, we're going to our big wall of panelists. It's great to see. First question, I think, for Margaret, if you can, just maybe talk through at what stage of an engineering degree do students do an internship? Is there an ideal time for it, or is there a place where it's too early when it's a bad idea? Can you maybe talk about the timing of integrating a placement into a 4-year or 5-year engineering degree?
Well, I think as we've just heard from Molly and Eve, there is no bad time to do an internship. If you have an opportunity to do an internship, you just take it. So typically students I think most students do more like one internship doing their degree rather than the 4 or 6. But and so if it's one, then they typically do that at the end of 3rd year, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, if you if you're busy 2nd years, they can go and look for an internship, and even 1st years can occasionally land an internship. So it's really any time is a good time. But practically, you're more likely to be at your most competitive point to get that valuable internship opportunity at the end of your 3rd year. Of course, most engineering degrees are 4 years. So that's why we're saying at the end of 3rd year would be the penultimate year.
Okay, thank you for that. That's good. Next question, I guess, feel free to answer or not answer to our graduates, Molly or Eve. Maybe Molly, you've done the most in this case. Do interns get paid? Is that, maybe the answer is yes and no, but yeah, what was your experience? Feel free not to answer, as I said, if you don't want to.
Yeah, sure. So because I supported myself through my degree, it was essential that my internships were paid. And so I really chased down opportunities where I had that value assigned. In saying that, I did do voluntary stints at companies a couple of weeks here and there where they were unpaid, and I guess accepted that. And I think it's up to everyone to figure out for themselves where the exchange of value lies. So for me, in those circumstances, getting exposure to a new skill or learning about new technology was a good exchange of value for me for that placement.
Okay, well, maybe a question for you, Eve, although, yeah, I could throw it open to Molly or even Warren. What does a typical day of an internship look like? What do you typically do on a normal day? Maybe first to Eve.
I'll give an example from my civil engineering internship at RMIT, as it's a large consultancy, so it probably best describes where a lot of internships would happen for students. So you'd usually go into the office probably around 8:30 to 9. It's usually not very demanding, and then potentially get a coffee, catch up with other interns. There's usually, as RMIT, for example, had a very structured internship program. We actually caught up sometimes just to talk about the the internship in overall. So, for example, talk about what your project as you'll be doing as a group, but then throughout the day you talk to your manager and they would assign you tasks directly, and there would always be industry focused tasks. So actually what your managers would be working on themselves, but they naturally take the time and sit down with you and explain what the task is, and catch up with you throughout the day to see how you're going. And sometimes, it's a task that will take an hour, but sometimes it might take a couple of days, as it's for example, a modeling task. But there's always someone there for you to ask questions, whether it's your manager directly or whether even someone in a different team.
Okay, that's great. And Warren, just throwing to you, what's a typical day for the interns that you supervise? Does it look the same? Has it changed with COVID, or what's a typical day for those guys?
No, they sit side by side with the team, right? And so in the morning, you do a quick check-in to make sure everyone's on the same page and understand what they're working on. Then they'll be able to take their own stories and kind of work on them. As they get started in the industry, they're typically paired with someone, so they're working side by side. So they're able to do the stories, get code reviewed, and get feedback. And then as they get more and more comfortable, then they're just part of the broader team with similar expectations as the engineers.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, maybe a question back to Eve. Just in terms of integrating studies and work at the same time, do you attend classes during internship, or do you have to take leave, or how does it work in terms of integrating both an internship and university classes and study?
So RMIT is very flexible with the lectures, with the tutorials. So there's always a timetabling system where you're able to choose which days you would prefer to be at university. So for example, there will actually be 3 options or more for tutorials. So the way I would always do it, I would schedule your lectures and your tutorials for specific days. So for example, let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then I always knew that Tuesday and Friday I had nothing on, and those 2 days I could work full time. So that's why you'd be able to support yourself throughout your university studies. And actually, if you had a paid internship, be able to work those 2 days, study 3 days, and do some extra study on the weekends, as a lot of those lectures, and particularly now throughout COVID-19, they are all recorded, so you can just study on the weekends if you'd prefer.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, question for Molly. Someone's interested to hear more about the garden and the seeds of the garden. So no, I think it's a wonderful analogy. Maybe just some tips. What are your tips for kind of building that strong garden or that network? And, you must have picked up something. Or what are the sort of key tips to build such a strong network?
So everything can be down in just one tip, and my key tip is be genuinely interested. Really mean it when you're forging a connection with someone. Be genuinely interested in them, not just for what they can give you, but for what they themselves have, right? So the best questions I have to ask if you don't know what to say is, how did you get to where you are? Was it where you expected to be? Where do you think you're getting to next? And get them talking about themselves. I think everyone likes to pass things on and share, and you'd be amazed what you can get out of people and what you can learn by showing a genuine interest.
That's good. Distilling it down to one tip is excellent. All right, switching over to Margaret. Just some questions around the different specializations in engineering, and are there any that are sort of more in demand at the moment?
Look, it varies, and so there is. I'm sure many of the people on the call are used to thinking about that industry goes in cycles, and so engineering is no different to that. And certainly, we're in a major demand for civil engineering at the moment. And if you're in Melbourne and driving around, not that of course we are driving around at the moment, but if you were driving around, you'd see lots of projects on all parts of the city. So those projects are great work opportunities for civil engineering graduates, and we see that we have high demand from our civil engineering. And then also all the standard engineering degrees, there's high demand from students, which reflects job opportunities in the workplace for mechanical, for electrical, for electronic, mechatronic, aerospace. Yeah, they're all high demand degrees and have got good opportunities. And I also want to say, one of the things I think is really good about RMIT engineering is that we have also one degree where you can enter if you're not sure what you want to do yet. So our Bachelor of Engineering Honours, if you're not quite sure if you want to do environmental or you want to do civil, or if you want to do mechanical or you want to do aero, you can join the Bachelor Engineering, and at the end of your first year, then you can make a more informed decision about really what is the one that you think is going to be the best fit for you, that you're most interested in. And so that's in its, where are we? Second year, I think, just the second year this year, but it's been so popular. Our most popular program is, in fact, this general engineering degree, and it's going from strength to strength. So I think that's a really good thing that we've created that program, especially for people who want to make a better, more informed choice about if they're not sure what they want to do.
Yeah, and in fact, if there's anyone who's watching this who wants to know more about choosing different specializations and how it affects you during your studies and how that plays out from industry, we've done another one of these panels just specifically on that, and how it's basically around career pathways, and it really goes into more detail into that program that Margaret was talking about. And we've similarly got current students and graduates and an industry representative to give you that perspective. So yeah, I think that's a great mention. Okay, just looking at the list of questions, there's a lot coming through, which is great. Maybe a question, it's about women in engineering. So maybe I'll go to our 3 women panelists, if anyone wants to take it, but maybe let's say starting with Molly. The question, it says that it's, it's great to see so many women in the panel, but is that, indicative of the industry? And, is it hard as a woman? Are there extra challenges, or is there, pathways that are more open? So yeah, feel free to tackle in that the aspect of women in engineering and however you sort of feel and respond to that. But yeah, is there sort of comments you want to make around being a woman in engineering?
Yeah, sure. I guess for me personally, I've never seen it as a barrier and never really let it hold me back from pursuing any opportunity. So, for example, commissioning a manufacturing plant last year, I was one of 300 and the only woman of 300 on site. And yeah, there were some points of that where people were quite surprised and where people test your capability a little bit. And I did notice that people maybe assumed that I didn't know so much or would explain to me things that I would actually know. But I always try to look at it on the bright side in that it gave me an opportunity to sit back and listen a lot more, like really deeply listen to what people were saying, take things on board. And I think as well, if you are that person of a minority group, or if you are that underrepresented person and you feel like you're not making enough of a difference, I think just reflect on the fact that you're there, you're in the room, you're on the factory floor, and that actually means something. Like, for example, I've now left that site, but I know that there's 3 women working there now on the floor. So again, sorry to back to the seed analogy, but I think all these little things that add up, and I think they have real influence and impact. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's great. And Eve, on your side, you're another woman in industry. What's your experience? Has there been challenges, has things to overcome, or how do you respond to that the aspect of women in engineering?
Honestly, I think Molly's summary was the best summary of all women's experiences I've ever heard. It's definitely like that. Similarly, I suppose for myself, maybe not 300 people, but similarly in a room on a construction site, you're just the only woman there. And it stopped, I suppose, being surprising now. It's just something that is. But I suppose engineering in particular, we're very diverse as it is, maybe not in gender diversity, but in cultural diversity. And I'd say from personal experience, that definitely helps. As whoever you meet, there's a large chance they've got a completely different story, and that's something you bond over. In particular, that cultural journey.
I'm going to throw this question to Margaret. I know this is a particular passion, a topic for you, the women in engineering. How do you see it? Maybe also with your view of the engineering industry, but also with your research hat on. How do you respond to that sort of the aspect of women in engineering and the challenges or the opportunities that are sort of faced because of that?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. It's been something, as you say, I've been interested in for a long time, and over the 25 years in an engineering department in university, I've seen the number of students grow, which is fantastic. But it's still lagging behind, many other disciplines. So it's a bit of a stubborn one, women in engineering, but endlessly fascinating for me because it's. If there's a stubborn problem, well, that's something that's even more of a challenge to solve. But it is quite a challenge. Look, I think girls these days, young people these days have a lot of choices. And so with there's so many choices, then that means that, not necessarily more students are picking engineering. And so as a proportion, the girls are increasing. But we'd certainly like to see more girls picking engineering as a career. I think it's a fantastic career, and girls have so much to offer. I think it's really important that all aspects of society have a more diverse presence, not just women in engineering, but all kind of diversity, and that brings a richness and an opportunity to help us move forward with some of those really difficult problems that exist. And engineers have so much to contribute. In terms of, for example, sustainability and climate change and mitigation and adaptation and all those things, which I think is something that often is a topic that interests girls in particular, but, appeals to, has a broad appeal. But, having diversity around the table when you're tackling some of those problems, that's really beneficial. So I'd certainly, I'd like to encourage girls to think about engineering as a great career, because it really is a great career and there is a great need and demand. Companies are very keen to hire women into engineering positions, because they're starting to see that they've been missing out. If you don't have a diverse workforce, you're really missing out. And Warren was saying as well, diversity produces creativity.
Yeah.
It's been known to increase more effective teams, and it's just really good. And of course, it is nice to have a few more female companions, but yeah,
certainly. Well, it's been nice. Just to cut you off there, sorry, because we're just about to hit the end of the time, so I might have to jump in. It has been nice in this panel to have that type of diversity. It is unfortunate that we've run out of time. Let me just wrap up by saying a huge thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for giving up your time and for your amazing insights on this sort of important issue to our prospective students. And thank you so much to all our viewers for watching us. Remember to check out that there are other live sessions on our Open Day platform, and register for the main online event this weekend, which is Sunday, August 29th. And we look forward to welcoming you to RMIT soon.